Hello, everyone, and welcome to another small screen Star Wars. As always, I'm Julian Musha. I'm joined by Rachel Wilkinson.
Hello.
And we're going to be talking about today Season 1, Episode 1, I guess technically Chapter 1 of the book of Boba Fett called Strangers in a Strange Land. Now, if you're new to the show, I'll just give you a quick catch up to speed on what we're going to be doing here. We're going to be reviewing and recapping. We kind of take it scene by scene and discuss these Star Wars shows as they come. Now, I haven't done one of these in a little while, not since Visions, so it's been a hot second. But we're glad to be back. Christmas season's over. We got some new Star Wars memorabilia that we can talk about. I certainly got a few things for Christmas for that, and then we'll look forward to the rest of the season and see what we think may or may not happen. So that's the plan. Now, before we get into any of that, I'll remind you all that we are a Tower of Babel podcast. So head over to towerofbabel.ca to find everything that we do, including our flagship show, the Tower of Babel podcast, where we talk about more things than just Star Wars, although Star Wars is sometimes on tap there. So you can check that out, like I said, at towerofbabel.ca. You can also follow us on Twitter at TowerBabelcast, Facebook.com/TowerBabelcast, and you can even watch us live because we're recording this live on YouTube, Twitch, and on Twitter. So that's going to be your best places to find us and tune in. We already have friend of the show, Kevin Gregoire, in watching from YouTube. So, happy to have some folks in here to, bring into the conversation. So let's jump right into this. And before we get into the actual events of this week's episode, I just wanted to quickly kind of, set the table in a Star Wars way. So I'll just mention that in terms of things that I've been doing Star Wars related, I've started watching the mainline movies with my girlfriend from the beginning. Now, from the beginning, I mean, that means a lot of different things, but for us, we decided to go with the traditional release order strategy.
Nice.
So we started with A New Hope. We've made it all the way through. We finished episode 1 yesterday. So that's as far as we got. I will say this, a couple things. It's jumped out at me. It's been a while since I've watched them all in a row like that, in that way. I think that it's so obvious and clear that Return of the Jedi was trying to do the same thing that Empire did, which was just like more, right? And I think it mostly works, but it's really not as strong as Empire, which is so good, right? Like it's from start to finish so good, looks so much better. A New Hope is great. It's probably if I was going to rank them from the original trilogy, it's Empire, then A New Hope, then Return of the Jedi.
Oh, okay.
And just because I think A New Hope, so tight, the story's so strong, but it's a little rough around the edges, right? Especially with George Lucas behind the camera, we know that that's not his strong suit. It's just the truth. Sorry, George, it's just the truth. And then
I'm sure he's listening.
We have Irvin Kushner coming in to do Empire, and it's just the movie looks way better. It looks and feels like what we understand to be modern Star Wars, and that came as early as the second movie. So really impressed with that. And then I know what I gotta say. Going back to episode 1, I was a little worried. Some of the effects don't hold up.
No.
Looking at Jar Jar mostly, but otherwise, I think that movie gets a bad rap. It is actually very good.
Yeah, I think it does too. I enjoy all the prequels.
Well, we're prequel apologists here.
Yeah,
on
I
Small
enjoy
Screen
them.
Star Wars.
I mean, I don't think there's ever really been any Star Wars that I've hated vehemently. So
well, yeah, that makes one of us then, because I did hate episode 9. So yeah, I think episode 1 is way stronger, and I think coming at it now with a lot more knowledge of events that preceded and followed that, and kind of what that led into in the Clone Wars and all these other things.
Yeah,
it's much more enjoyable to watch.
It helps that there's a lot of memes in there too now. So
yes, like the a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one.
Yeah.
When I saw that, I was like, I did another meme. I did the DiCaprio on the couch pointing thing.
Yes.
When I saw that, so I think, and like obviously, Sebulba is a great character, side character. You gotta love, I just like so much of it is just so much fun. Obviously, Qui-Gon is so great. Like it's so amazing to have Qui-Gon here. The young Obi-Wan is great. my girlfriend was like, "Wow, look how young Obi-Wan looks here," and I was like, "Yeah, that's the kind of the idea, and it totally works." So, I'm coming around. I know, the co-host on our regular show, Jeremy, he thinks it's the best of the prequels. I don't know if I would go that far, but
Yeah.
I would say that it was getting shit on a lot for a long time, and I don't think it deserves it
No.
as much. That being said, Jar Jar is still very hard to handle. It
He's
is
a lot. Yeah, he's
it
a
is
lot.
tough. I think you could really recut that movie with a little less Jar Jar would go a long way.
Yeah.
That's my kind of my general assessment of that.
I feel like people have been asking for that for a while, so.
If it'll happen, hard to say. Hard to say. Anyway,
no, probably not. But I've been reading all the Dr. Aphra's comics actually.
Yeah.
Over the last couple of days, they're fantastic. So highly recommend if you can get your hands on them to read them. They're really good.
I've been reading I picked up the Lone Wolf and Cub.
Oh, I've read those.
Graphic novel.
Mm-hmm.
And I've started I've just read the first chapter, and I'm just kind of like, obviously it's very, it was a major inspiration for things like The Mandalorian.
Oh,
and
okay.
just generally Star Wars in general.
Interesting.
Being Japanese, feudal
Yeah.
Japan, all that kind of stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
that'll come up again later in our conversation today. So, we got Johnny Sins 6969, great name in watching on Twitter. We're doing great. Thank you for asking. Hope you're doing well, Johnny, as well.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into this a little bit more. But before we do, I just wanted to quickly touch on some of the things I got for Christmas. Besides COVID, I also got Star Wars, a Lego Star Wars set, a Mandalorian set, and really, it's one of those mini ones. I got it up in the camera here. It's one of those mini ones. So it's not as detailed as some of those larger sets, but it's really all about the minifigs. And this comes with a Tuscan Raider, the Mandalorian, and a baby Grogu. So I'm looking forward to putting that together in about 5 minutes, because that's about as long as it'll take to put together. But it was from my sister, so I appreciate that. She got me the Mandalorian helmet last year, so she went
right.
a
Yes,
smaller
she did.
this year.
I got one of those for my boyfriend this year, actually. Not the
A
Mandalorian
helmet?
one. I got him a Death Watch one. Yeah, it was pretty
That is cool.
actually.
I saw that at EB Games the other day.
Yeah, so did I,
cool.
and then I bought it. So.
And then I also got a Stormtrooper video game controller holder.
I've seen those.
It's a little silly because I thought it also charged the controller. It does not.
That's what we thought too. I think
Yeah.
we have a Boba Fett one and a Darth Vader one.
Yeah, my roommate got a Darth Vader one. So
yeah.
in terms of Star Wars stuff, that's stuff that we got. I'll mention this though. I did get this. I got I'm pulling it up here. A Rode arm, like mic arm, studio arm kind of situation for the podcast. So that'll, the look will change slightly if you're watching live in the near future.
Ooh, fancy.
I know, quite fancy.
Yeah.
I'll be just like a regular radio host. I'll be playing those buttons that go like, like the funny sound effects and like fart sounds and stuff.
Oh, great.
That'll
Fart sounds.
next.
That's what this podcast is lacking.
Well, I got that gonk one. Should I play that one here?
No, the gonk ones? No, it's too loud. In my headphones, it hurts my ears so bad.
Well, it's pretty funny.
You need to dial the volume on that one down.
I don't know how to make it, it also has that like really brutal sound distortion at the end. I don't know how to fix that.
It's terrible.
I don't know. That's why we don't use the soundboard for that reason. Zencaster needs to work on their soundboard technology. Okay, let's get into this episode.
Yeah.
Again, this episode is called Chapter 1, Strangers in a Strange Land. This is a Bible verse, actually. Where that name comes from. Yeah, it originally appears in the Bible.
I wouldn't know. I'm a heathen.
And I believe it actually is from the Old Testament. And I'm borrowing some of this stuff from, obviously, I do a little bit of the research before. And this came up. There is other biblical references in this episode, but we're just not going to get into it. There's some Egyptian-esque references and themes, Old Testament style. Throughout this episode, but mostly this, I think, is referring to, I guess, hold on, before I say anything, what do you think that Strangers in a Strange Land refers to?
Like biblically or in terms of the episode?
in terms of the episode. Who cares about biblically?
Yeah, I was like, oh, you're asking
the only Bible I consider is to be the Star Wars characters and whatever manual.
Yes. Okay, Strangers in a Strange Land. I don't really, not that I, look, you're going to have to be, everyone listening, be easy with me. I am sick with,
also the vid.
I have COVID.
Yeah, but like, how are your symptoms? Because I'm already feeling better.
Oh, I didn't know you had it, so we're both COVID. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it just feels like a cold, but my brain is foggy, so I'm stupider, if that makes any sense.
It doesn't, but that's okay.
My boyfriend showed me a text from, like, a screenshot of a text from his mom the other day, and I thought he was showing me a text from my own mom, because it said mom. So, yeah, okay, Strangers in a Strange Land. Yeah, I don't know, I would just kind of assume it's, in general, like, Boba Fett being not a stranger, but him meeting all these new people and, trying to make his way up, not up the ladder, he's already up there, but introducing himself. But he is a stranger in a strange land. I don't know.
Yeah, it is a bit tougher than the usual, like, really on the nose Star Wars titles for these episodes. But
yeah,
I would say that this is kind of one major thing that comes to mind is this idea that Boba Fett is now in a position of power when he was not in before. So he's a stranger to that, and he kind of talks about that. Fennec is offering them advice. He's being offered a lot of advice in this episode about how he should handle things, right?
Right.
And he's new to that, and he's taking a new approach, of course. But the thing is, like, Strangers in a Strange Land is a biblical verse. It refers to, again, the Old Testament, and, like, if you're thinking of like the Old Testament, there's a lot of deserts. Okay, so this could be just as straight up as like, oh yeah, he's just wandering the desert now, kind of like
right.
Moses or whatever. But I'm not necessarily saying that. I think it is more straightforward than that. He's a stranger to the life of the Tuscan Raiders, right? But it also says strangers. It's like which is the direct line from the Bible. You could drop the S if you want. It doesn't matter. But they're strangers. So then I think that brings in Fennec, right, into this new position. Sure. But really, those are the only characters in this episode that the Rodian is killed.
Yes.
So it's like, is it the? It has to. To me, it has to be that.
Yeah, that makes the most sense to me too.
Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt. Just technically speaking, my Zencaster changed up a little bit here.
I started recording. It's because I forgot to start recording.
Okay.
Yeah. I
just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, no, thanks for checking. That's good.
Yeah, no worries. Okay. I was like, it looks different. Okay, cool.
So as we get into this episode, before we even do that, I will just mention that there is a new Star Wars logo intro scene, where it flashes across the different helmet faces and stuff. It seems like there's a new one for every series. So I've decided I'm going to start tracking what those are. So the here's what we have in order of appearance, okay, is my interpretation, okay? Vader, then BB-8, then Mando, then Kylo Ren, then R2-D2, then a Rebel pilot, then 3PO, then Fennec Shand, and then I think Boba Fett. Oh. But he's lit up in red light, which I think is important to just make that distinction there. It could be just any Mandalorian helmet, I suppose, but it's the second one after Mando. So, and it is the Book of Boba Fett. It does. It's hard to sell. Like those, with like the lights, it's hard to tell. They're not real items. It doesn't. I don't think it's all CG. So that's kind of like, that's my readout. To me, pretty basic. This is basic bitch stuff here. Like the Vader, like, get out of here. Yeah. Right. So, I'm just saying, like, I liked it when it was a little bit more creative. Like you had like clone Gen 1 or Gen 2 helmets or whatever, that kind of stuff. Or like different variations on the Stormtrooper helmets, that kind of stuff, I think is more fun. But this is all, like I said, basic bitch stuff. We got Vader, but maybe BB-8, it's because of the
time frame.
R2-D2, 3PO. Yeah,
that's fair.
So yeah, and Vader's super dead by this point. So
is he? Oh yeah. Oh, sorry.
Well,
again, I have mush brain. But it's just because it keeps flashing back and forth in this episode. So, but yes,
I guess presumably Vader's still alive when he's with the Tuscans, presumably, but probably not for very long. So
yeah, that's fair.
Okay, so no, he's probably not. To be honest, actually, he's probably dead already at that point. He's super dead already by that point. In fact, I know that because when the Empire falls, and that's the reason they have those gangs. That gang that like is like just destroying that moisture farm that they see.
Right.
That it's post Return of the Jedi. He's in Return of the
Gotcha.
Jedi. He dies, quote unquote, and then he gets out, and Vader's already dead at that point. So
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Glad we got that sorted out. Okay, so the episode starts at Jabba's palace, which I guess is not called Jabba's palace anymore. The one thing I do want to note about Jabba's palace, which I've been telling everyone who will listen. Oh, the other thing I got to mention this. The other thing I got for Christmas for Star Wars related was Cards Against Humanity, but the Star Wars versions of Cards Against Star Wars.
I've been wanting to get those.
It's really good. But we've
Yeah?
also played the Cards Against Marvel, and I will just say this. The Cards Against Marvel is not good. Okay?
Oh, really? Okay.
Cards Against Star Wars, very good, in my opinion. I've now played it with people.
At least?
Oh, yeah, very
Okay.
funny. Like, there's one I thought that I thought was particularly funny, but maybe this is just me. But it was Director Krennic literally choking on his own
Aspirations.
Aspirations. Yeah, I thought was a good line. There's a lot of like Luke and Leia incest jokes. It's chock a block full of stuff. For me, it works as a Star Wars fan because it's like there's opportunities to be like accurate in the way you play your cards. In like, does that fit the timeline and that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Well, it's also really funny because I've now played it with people who do know and do not know Star Wars.
That was my next question: was can you play it with people who don't?
It's
know Star
not
Wars
as good because it's not as good, obviously.
The little nuances, like they're probably not going to know who Krennic is. And
it's right, and like because man, I was playing in a group of people who didn't really know, mostly just me and like my brother kind of knew Star Wars. So I'm like, a card came up that said Boba Fett was terrified when he saw blank. Okay, that was the card. And I had so there's a lot of like cards in the deck that are just like the names of characters.
Right.
Which I find those are the worst ones. They're really hard to play and they're kind of shitty. So, but I had one that's Mace Windu, and I was like, that's perfect. That would be the perfect card to play. But like no one would get it. I was like, I played it, and I was like, are you guys serious? You guys don't even understand.
Yeah,
he killed his dad. Like, guys, what are you talking about? He chopped his head off in front of him. Of course, he'd be terrified if he saw him, right? So that didn't really land in the same way. So you have to play it a little differently, of course. But I think it still works. To the group. And great learning opportunities for people. You pull cards, and people are like, "I don't get it." You're like, "Let me tell you. Okay?
Yeah.
Here's how this actually works."
So perfect for you, actually. To
it's really good.
Things.
Yeah. So it's really I've really enjoyed it. But the problem with Marvel's the Cards Against Humanity or Cards Against Marvel is that it's basically just Mad Gabs with Marvel character names, and it's like. And it's really raunchy, like way more raunchy than I expected. And it's like, listen, I know Cards Against Humanity is pretty raunchy. I get that.
Yeah, it is.
But like the Marvel version, it's weird because it's like these are characters that that don't do those things,
Right. Yes.
So it's really odd. And it's not creative in the sense that it doesn't feel like it fits into the Marvel universe in like a cohesive way like the Star Wars one does.
Right. It's just like dirty to be dirty. There's
exactly.
no thought behind it. Yeah.
Exactly. Which I found to be lame. So Star Wars, Cards Against Star Wars, very, very good. Cards Against Marvel, very, very bad. That's the takeaway. But the reason I mentioned this because we're starting at Jabba's palace, and I know we're already minutes into this and we haven't gotten to the episode yet. But started Jabba's palace. The thing that I keep mentioning about Jabba's palace is that it wasn't originally Jabba's palace. It's actually a monastery for these weird people, these monks who decided they're going to forego their physical bodies and instead put their brains into these jars, right?
Okay.
And these jars are going to be installed into these robots, these droids that are like spider-shaped droids.
Ew, okay.
And they walk around as these spider droids. Okay. They look like spiders with a brain in a bowl.
I hate that.
And those are the monks. Those are the monks who used to like operate. And in fact, you can see one in Return of the Jedi, and they actually reference you can see one again more recently in a trailer for Book of Boba Fett. So there you go.
Weird. I don't understand the point of that. Why
they have
would
a
you
name.
want to
I don't remember
put
the name.
yourself into something that like isn't sentient?
Again, they're forgoing their physical form so they can be closer to God or something.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Okay. So we are at Jabba's palace, and it's empty and it's quiet. Shots of familiar places. We see that opening hallway. We see the throne room. It's all very quiet. In stark contrast to opening of Return of the Jedi where it's full of people and it's super annoying. Okay. So, cut to a chamber with a Bacta tank. Boba is inside healing, and that's when the flashbacks start. And I did the jump out of my seat and point thing because Camino was the first shot. I was like, that is so cool, right? And then it's Battle of Geonosis, and we see young Boba holding his father's head. In fact, that classic scene, everyone remembers it. We get a new camera angle here. This is a much higher angle of the shot, which is cool. So that's interesting. And then we cut to inside of the Sarlacc pit. So no shots from Return of the Jedi. We don't see him like it's really lame.
like Looney Tunes.
Looney Tunes style. Boba Fett where? Bang. And then it goes, wah! Yeah, it's really sad. It's really lame. So we don't see that because we're going to make him look cool in this show. And so we cut to inside of the Sarlacc pit. And if you've ever been in one of those like horror like haunted houses, sometimes one of the things that they'll make you walk through is like this like really tight wall where it's like these leather walls on both sides that are like being blown with air, so you have to like push your way through. It's really thin. Yeah, it's really gross.
No thanks.
So that's what that inside of the Sarlacc pit looks like.
Yeah.
And he's in his old beige jumpsuit from Return of the Jedi, so that's cool. And by the way, for the record, I just got to say I like the beige more than the black. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he's in that. He's got that whole dealio going on. He uses a stormtrooper's armor to breathe. And a little known fact, maybe about stormtroopers, is that their suits are supposed to be entirely sealed, so they can fight in space. We don't really see that very often. But they do have their own oxygen tank and like water supply. So anyway, he uses that to breathe, and then he punches through the flesh of the Sarlacc's like stomach, and then uses his flamethrower to escape. We cut to and that was just super gross. Any thoughts on that other than it's super gross looking?
Yeah, my only kind of not qualms, but I kind of wanted to see more Sarlacc pit.
Oh, interesting. Because the line "it'll slowly digest you for over 1,000 years" makes it think like you're in there for a long time, like you're sitting on a bench and you're like, man, when are they going to digest me already?
I just thought that whole like him getting out of the Sarlacc was going to take a lot longer than that, because the scene was very, very quick, and I was just like, oh shit, he's just like out already? Like, all right, I guess so.
I think you can't spend a lot of time there because it's like, how do you visualize it? I think they did a good enough job as they could have,
fair.
In that scenario.
I just maybe would have just liked to see a little bit more like fighting. I don't know, him having to fight something in there.
Some sort of tentacle.
Yeah, just like a little bit more something, but... Or like
for me, it's
like explode, or I don't know.
I totally know where you're coming from, because it's like it's been like 30 years since Return of the Jedi, and you're like, how did he escape? We really want to know. And it's like he just punches his way through and then uses his flamethrower. Like it seems like anyone could have escaped,
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I think you needed that armor was necessary for you to be able to escape there.
That's true, because that stormtrooper looked pretty like not
great,
crushed or anything,
super dead.
Like, he was super dead, but he didn't look like like he was crushed or anything.
And by the way, this idea that it'll slowly digest you over 1,000 years, sure, it will, but you're not going to be alive for 1,000 years. I think that's an important distinction that people forget.
Yeah,
you will die before you are slowly digested.
Yeah.
Anyway, it might be a slow, painful death, though. That's true. Anyway, so he escapes the Sarlacc pit. I think it's just enough. Like, I don't need to understand how necessarily. It gives me enough information. I can put the pieces together myself the rest of the way. He digs his way out of the sand, right? Triumphant music plays as Boba emerges from the sand as if being reborn, right?
Mm-hmm.
The wreckage of Jabba's sail barge is all around, right? He collapses in exhaustion. You cut to nighttime, and a sandcrawler arrives. By the way, I didn't love the effect of the sandcrawler. I thought the visuals could have been a little bit stronger here. And especially after how good the sandcrawler looked in Mando.
In Mando, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. The sandcrawler arrives. Jawas steal his armor. This is all consistent with the books and the story we've heard so far. Steal his armor. He tries to stop them, but is knocked out again. Cut back to daytime. It's now a sandstorm. Tuscan Raiders / sand people find Boba's body. Now stripped down to his jumpsuit. It looks very funny, just the jumpsuit, but it's funny.
Yeah, it does.
He's still unconscious. They wake him up with some green goo, then have him walk behind them tied to their banthas as they march through the dune sea. I did like the visuals of him having to, like, there's a, the ancient medieval torture where you'd be dragged behind a horse and all that kind of stuff. This is much slower than that.
Right.
But there like it does look very intense. His lips look so dry. Ugh.
Oh, his skin looks raw.
Really bad. Yeah. Not great. I guess stomach acid will do that to you.
Yeah. I was gonna ask, like, I'm assuming all the, like, kind of scarring on him is from
the sarlacc.
The sarlacc, yeah, like the acid and everything, yeah.
I think you have to assume that.
Yeah, that's kind of looked gross.
So they anyway, so they're tied up. He walks behind the banthas. Eventually, he becomes too weak and is dragged through the sand. Cut to title card. Okay, what did you think of this opening bit? This is basically saying, hey, if you haven't been paying attention, Boba's back. Here's how he survived the Sarlacc pit. Thoughts so far?
Yeah, no. I was just very excited in general for it. So, but like I said, I maybe would have liked to see a little bit more of him getting out of the Sarlacc, just because it's been kind of like built up. But I think they did really well with just the way he looks in general, like exactly like how we were just talking about, like the special effects kind of on his skin, to just those like minute details of like being like, oh yeah, like he's super messed up, his skin's all burned. I really like the interaction between him and the Jawas.
Yeah,
where he like wakes up for a second
he
and
tries to like reach out and then bang, one smack to the head.
In the head. I'm like, oh, they're so savage. So I did like getting actually to see like, okay, like, I mean, it was obvious kind of how the Jawas got his armor, but not at the same time, because you're kind of thinking like, how did they, like, he's pretty tough, how did a bunch of stupid Jawas get his armor? So it makes sense that he was just like exhausted and
completely passed out.
Like that makes sense that that's the only way they could get it from them. And then I just thought it was a very like interesting kind of way to set up where we're going with the story in this episode. So I really I enjoyed the opening scene.
Okay, well, I would agree with that. Basically all forms. Okay, so cut to the Tuscan Camp. Okay, Boba is tied to a post. He's sitting in the sun. He's surrounded by some like younglings of these Tuscan Raiders who proceed to beat him with sticks as the older ones watch. Okay.
So
by the way, I think we got to mention this. This whole opening sequence, there's no dialogue. This is all just show, don't tell, which I think is brilliant stuff. This is all directed, of course, by Robert Rodriguez. Robert Rodriguez did the original Boba Fett return episode in Mando season 2, which wasn't my favorite episode, but this feels much stronger in my opinion than that one, at least visually. And anyway, so he's beat up with sticks. He's knocked out and wakes up. It's now dark. There is now also an orange-colored Rodian tied up with him nearby. Boba attempts to cut his bonds, but a sleeping lizard dog, which we know, of course, is called a massive.
You asking me? Okay, I was like,
it's a massive. I didn't think you'd remember.
No.
Wakes up and lunges at him. Boba times it well and knocks out the massive using the teeth of the dog to cut his ropes. Of course, it's very important because he's the hero of our show. He has to show that he's not cruel to animals for cruelty's sake. So he like pets its face, and then later on says, "Hey, no hard feelings," right? So it's
I like that.
Okay.
You can't kill giant lizard dogs. It's just not allowed.
Well, I don't think he didn't so much kill it as so much knock it out, and he didn't even do a very good job because it wakes up like 2 seconds later. So, Boba asked the Rodian. This is the first line of dialogue, by the way, in the entire episode. It's like 10 minutes in. Boba asked the Rodian if he should cut his bonds, but instead of helping, he instead signals the rest of the Tuscans and calls the alarm. Boba makes a break for it, making a point not to beat the young Tuscan who had beat him earlier.
Yeah.
He's caught shortly after by the Mastiff, and then has a one-on-one fight with one of the older Tuscans. He loses the fight, which I know people are pissed about, but it's like, come on, man! Like, he is basically like it's a miracle that he's alive here. Never mind really to fight.
He's basically just been partially digested, and knocked out multiple times.
Right, and then been sitting in the sun.
Dehydrated,
baking in double suns.
Yeah, and all he has is a stick. And I believe that other guy has at least like a sword. I don't know, or something.
He has like blade. That. He has that. There was a name for it, but like the Tuscan Raider like club,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah. I mean, it makes sense that he kind of got his ass kicked again.
Right.
He's probably concussed and dehydrated.
So what were you gonna say? You were gonna say something about the little kid?
Oh yeah,
Tuscan?
no. It's just because he's going to be this main character, right? And we're gonna try and see, like, they got to make him at least like palatable for people, right? So he can't just be super vicious. They're not going to have him murder a Tuscan kid because he's just a
Right.
kid. So no, I just thought it was very sweet, like that hesitation and the even though that kid just beat him, he was just like, "Okay, no, I'm not gonna."
He's like, I'm not just gonna beat a kid for no reason.
No,
Right.
exactly. As soon as he because he gives up too right away, right? He just puts his hands up, and you can tell he's kind of scared. So
Yeah, and there's like the show attempts, I think, in this episode to like establish a relationship between this child and Boba, but like I don't think it's in my opinion, I don't think it does a very good job because I didn't pick up on that until the second viewing. So
yeah, like yeah, you're right. They allude to it a little bit. Like there's that, okay, he could have hurt him there and
right,
he didn't, and yada yada.
and then he saves his life later.
Yeah, exactly. So they are building that up a little bit, but you're right. It could have been a little bit.
Well, it's also hard to tell who's who. They all look kind of the same. No offense, they're all literally wrapped in cloth. So it's like it's like hard to tell who's who. Is that young Tuscan like the son of that other or daughter of that other Tuscan? Like we don't know. Like it's
really
like
know.
it's hard to tell. I mean, maybe that'll be revealed to us later. But I'm just saying that this episode, I feel like it just lays the groundwork, and I didn't really pick up on that because I wasn't sure who was who until the second viewing, and then even then, I'm still not sure.
Am I wrong? But can't anybody be a Tuscan?
No, they are a species. They're the sand people, right? Which is obviously the derogatory term.
They do look a certain way under their.
We just don't know what they look like.
That's
right.
But other people have been Tuscans because isn't like Obi-Wan or not Obi-Wan? It's either Obi-Wan or what's his name? The other undercover guy.
No, I don't. I mean, I don't. They might have gone undercover as them, but like my interpretation is that it's like this is an indigenous species.
I see.
To Tatooine, it's like, you can dress up like them, but you can't be them.
Yes, you can't just be one. Okay, fair enough.
But I could be wrong. So if people know otherwise, let me know. We've got another person in the chat here. DG. Oh, this is really hard to say. Deguy Wedge 3, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're asking, are we discussing Boba Fett? We are discussing Boba Fett. Hope you join us. Okay. So we're at the Tuscan Camp, and he gets his ass kicked. And he's taken back into their custody as the footage takes on this grainy effect. Now, this grainy look is not something we've seen in Star Wars, I don't think, ever before. But it is a Rodriguez thing, so he has used it before in some of his earlier films like El Mariachi. So it's likely a reference to that. Okay, just to kind of like really establish that this is a dream or this is a dream sequence or a flashback sequence. We're going to use this effect to end it, and then ultimately they use it again to reintroduce the sequence. So it's more clear that this is happening at a different time or it's happening in his dreams or whatever.
Yes.
Okay, so and we cut back to Tank. Ming-Na Wen's Fennec Shand is telling him he needs to wake up, calling him boss as to remind us of their relationship. Again, if you hadn't seen Mandalorian, you might not know about some of this stuff.
I think anybody's watching this show that hasn't seen The Mandalorian?
I think
like,
it's possible.
General query. I'm asking. I'm not just being weird.
I think it's possible because I think if you were like really like maybe you were an older Star Wars fan who
it's true.
was disillusioned by the prequels or whatever, and you really loved Boba Fett. This is the show about him. You're like gonna jump in. You could do that in the show, in theory. Right? It just picks up with him after Return of the Jedi, and it's like okay, now here's where he is. If you wanted to kind of check in on those other things, well, you can go check out Mando, but they might not even know those exist.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, the Bacta drains out, and he tells her that the dreams are back. I just thought that's such a funny line. That's very important. It's like a necessity, it's a necessity to the show. It's like, oh, we need to establish that these are dreams.
Right. Yes.
There's maybe an unreliable narrator. All these other kinds of things. It's just important to say, but it's funny. She doesn't acknowledge that and doesn't say anything about it at all, and tells him to get dressed because, quote, they are lined up to pay respects. We then get this really cool sequence of Boba putting on his armor, or getting assistance in putting his armor on. That I really enjoyed. I thought
I like that
just
too.
really badass.
Yeah, it was super cool.
And then we cut to the throne room, and Boba is sitting with Fennec as they receive gifts from Jabba's former underlings. Now, this scene is gonna have probably the most kind of like callbacks and references and whatnot. So, I do like that they make a joke about not understanding anything that like an Aqualish is saying.
Yeah.
And then that they need a protocol droid because, of course, if you go back to Return of the Jedi, C-3PO is recruited, is captured and then brought to serve Jabba as a protocol droid to do that job. So I think that's a fun reference to 3PO. And then we have another droid who's not technically a protocol droid, but similar in kind of styling, has a human-like face and arms and body. This is 8D8, and you may recognize this droid also from Return of the Jedi because it's the droid that was torturing the Gonk droid in Jabba's palace.
Oh, okay.
So,
why would you torture a Gonk droid?
I don't know if you noticed, but this droid seems to like torture.
Okay, fair enough.
So 8D8 introduces a Trandoshan named Doc Strassi, who's actually played by Rodriguez. So that's interesting. The director is actually in the role here. That's pretty common for Star Wars for them to kind of take a role in the show somewhere. Like I said, 8D8 is the one who tortured the Gonk droid from Return of the Jedi. It's also voiced by Matt Berry. This is an actor from the IT crowd, and also I think most recently for me, What We Do in the Shadows. He's very funny.
Oh, is he in What We Do in the Shadows?
Yes.
Oh, I love that movie. It's so good.
Well, he's actually from the show What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, there's a show. Wait, is it a show or a movie?
There's a movie and a show now.
Oh, okay. I've only seen the movie then.
Yeah, the movie is great. The show is also great. And he's really, really good in it. So you can he plays Vlad the Impaler, I believe.
Oh, okay. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. So anyway, he's very funny. Boba then makes another joke, and I thought this didn't really land for me. Where he's like making a joke about being weird, like being presented a gift because he used to work for him. He's like, "Oh, this is weird. I used to work for him."
Oh, yes.
I just thought that was just like it felt very like eclectic dialogue, like something that we would say in the real world, and it's odd to see in Star Wars in the same way. But I don't know.
Yeah, especially with like power shifts happening all the time and people trying to like double cross each other, and like you feel like there wouldn't be that much merit put on someone being your former boss.
You feel weird. That's the word you're going to use here, Boba Fett. You feel weird about it. Okay.
Yeah. I want to ask you, what did you think about how the Trandoshan looked?
They look fine.
Okay. See, to me, I wasn't like, not that I wasn't impressed with it. I didn't hate it, but there was just something to me that I was like, didn't look as good. A little cheaper. Yeah, it didn't look as good as like how well they do with some of the other like alien species. But I get it. Maybe like Trandoshans are just a little bit more difficult.
They are harder because it's like a lizard dog person.
Yeah, but maybe if it's like an actual costume, I don't know. Like, but I just feel like they're so good at like doing like the.
I always think Trandoshans look weird. For the record, it's true. Like they look so stiff. Like, and it's a part of it is because like it is a costume. It's like, but even Bossk's original appearance, he looks so stiff in that.
Obviously,
thing.
his original appearance for sure. Just because.
Yeah, but then even when you see them in animation, I think they look dumb. So.
Yeah. That's fair.
Okay, so there is an interesting piece here where Doc, the Trandoshan, presents a Wookiee pelt. By the way, which is
so rude.
So rude, but maybe not to Boba because he actually did have a part of a Wookiee pelt on his armor before, and refers to Boba as the new daimyo, and this is a Japanese term. Okay, now this is always weird. I know, especially former co-host Dan, roommate Dan, used to be like weirded out how like regular ass English words that don't have any like direct like general translation to like a larger world appear in Star Wars, right?
Okay.
And it's like, how would they know about blank or an eagle? What's the Millennium Falcon? Like, what's a falcon? In Star Wars, right? This is supposed to be a galaxy far, far away, right? But it's like ultimately they're speaking English here, so we can all chillax about that.
Yes,
but,
I think so.
But the term daimyo doesn't have a direct English translation. It's just it's purely a Japanese word.
Right.
So that is really interesting. Obviously, of course, in one aspect, it is a nod to the fact that Japanese filmmaking and all that kind of stuff was a massive influence on George Lucas, so that makes sense.
Of course, yeah.
But then also it does serve a role here. It's just a direct word. In this case, it refers to feudal lords in ancient Japan. So that's what a daimyo is. They're like the feudal lords.
What is a feudal lord?
They're like the person in charge of like all the serfs in a specific region.
Oh, okay.
Right?
So like not like a king, but like a
not a king, but like a
regional, like a mayor,
like a duke or something.
Okay.
You know,
yes.
It doesn't quite work that way, but this is a specific. They are in charge of their plot of land, right? And all the people underneath them are serve the daimyo.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And in traditional Japanese, a daimyo would actually serve another person, the shogun.
Right. Yes.
So it's unclear if that's kind of how that works here. If there's like a shogun-like character who will need to be respected, like that, that the Hutts maybe were paying homage to. It seems unlikely, but the idea here is that this crime lord has this plot of land, this or Tatooine as it were, that and the serfs, quote unquote, underneath him all pay him respects. That's the idea.
Yes.
Anyway, so 8D8 then introduces the mayor of Mos Espa, Mok Shays. Mos Espa, by the way, is that larger city they go to later in this episode, but also where parts of episode 1 take place, which I don't think people like. If people think it's like, oh, that's Mos Eisley, it's not. It's Mos Espa, which is the bigger city on Tatooine. You actually see a lot of the taller buildings in episode 1. Blink and you'll miss it. You see some of those taller buildings in the background when they land the Nubian ship. So there you go. And then so anyway, they introduce the mayor. It's not the mayor. It turns out it's actually the mayor's major domo to the mayor. And the major domo, I guess, is kind of like, I don't know even how you describe. Let's just define that word while we're here. Major domo is the chief steward of a large household. Okay. So take that for what you will.
Yeah.
He's basically the right-hand man to the mayor of Mos Espa. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, if we're talking about this is a combination of like Japanese feudalism and like the Godfather-esque crime families. Okay.
Yes.
Kind of like combination of that. So in this case, we've got a corrupt mayor, and they're kind of ingrained with the organized crime. Okay, which is probably not that much of a stretch. I'm pretty sure that's true in lots of places in the world. And this is actually played brilliantly. This character is played brilliantly by David Pasquizzi, who you may recognize from Veep. I think he's just very good in this role. Very funny.
Okay. After this, I'm gonna tell you immediately what I thought about this character.
Well, I can just tell me now.
It's gonna ruin it.
Okay, so no, just tell me now.
To me, he sounded like Owen Wilson.
Oh, really?
I was really trying to figure out. I'm like, is that Owen Wilson? Because the way his what do you call that, when his semantics, I guess, like the way someone speaks, I guess, or I don't know how you talk, what it's called, but yeah, the way he spoke, I honestly for a split second thought it was Matthew McConaughey, or not Matthew McConaughey, thought it was Owen Wilson.
He does have a bit of an Owen Wilson-y kind of. It's more slick than that, I think.
Yeah, it was a little bit more slick, but he just kind of has, I don't know, just the way that, just kind of some of the characters.
It's very casual.
Plays, yeah, that kind of
casual. It's very casual in a serious situation, which it is, by the way, always great, in my opinion, to see.
No, but it was well done. But I was like, why? He's so weird.
Kevin Gregoire in the chat mentions that, talking about the use of the word, we were just talking about the Japanese word, daimyo. He's saying that I always look at this kind of stuff like it was the closest word the universal translator could find, which I appreciate that. It's just like, hey, there is no direct English word for this, so what's the next closest thing? Oh, it's this word. In this case, it just happens to be kind of an homage to the Star Wars, its kind of its heritage, its roots.
Oh, so that's, sure, yeah.
So that's kind of cool. I like that. Big fan of that. Okay, so where were we? They introduced this right-hand man of the mayor, right, the major domo. And there seems to be a misunderstanding as he brings no tribute and instead wishes them the mayor's quote-unquote heartfelt welcome. And Fennec reminds him that, he wouldn't be able to, speak so casually if Jabba was still in charge, and references the menagerie. He would feed you to his menagerie.
Yeah.
In this case, our most famous, obviously, encounter with Jabba's menagerie is the encounter in Return of the Jedi with Luke and the what the hell's its name?
The Rancor?
The Rancor.
Yes.
So
okay. Yeah.
so that's the idea. It's like, oh well, if you wouldn't be this insolent. This was the direct line, right?
Yes.
If this was Jabba.
No.
And it's true. He is intentionally pushing stepping onto and maybe just over the line of seeing what he can get away with.
Oh yeah,
right?
for sure. And I mean that makes sense. He's kind of testing the boundaries of this new guy's here, so makes sense.
Well, also his presence and not the mayor's presence in and of itself is an insult.
Oh, of
in
course,
a sense,
yeah.
Right? He's come. He's like, listen, he got caught up with business. He couldn't get away. Yada yada yada. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is all being played in this kind of like very in a lot of pageantry, right?
Yes.
He then,
a good word for it.
which I really like. There's this other aspect here. Is like, there is one other thing. Is like, you're actually supposed to pay us a tribute. It's not the other way around, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And and this incites Fennec to be like, should we just kill him? And they decide to hold off,
yeah.
not to do that. And he's like, because there's that line where he's like, I'm the crime lord. Aren't they supposed to pay me? Which again, I think mileage may vary on that. That some of this dialogue in the scene, specifically from Boba, I think it's a little too cheeky.
Yes.
For my liking. But take it for what you will. Fennec tells him that their only gift is that they will leave. They'll allow him to leave unmolested.
Yeah, I hated that.
You don't like that term?
I really hated that term.
Why?
I don't know. It's probably just one of those trigger words for me that I just don't like in general. It just, to me, that's not, I don't know. There's so many other words you could use.
In this case, basically what they're saying is, we won't kill you. And
no, I know that. I know what they mean. I know what they're saying, but I was just like, you easily could have figured out a better kind of, still with the same sort of cheekiness to it or the same sort of attitude to it. But yeah, I don't know. It was a weird choice for me.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. So they let them leave. There's that last line where I wouldn't, you should expect to see another delegation soon, which is obviously another veiled threat.
Yes,
there was kind of a veiled threat from the Trandoshan when he says, "May you never leave Mos Espa," right? And then,
yes.
I think this idea that you may receive another, delegation soon, I think is a direct reference to the ambushing that they receive later. That's my
for sure.
interpretation. But 8D8 then introduces two Gamorrean guards who were once loyal to Jabba and Bib Fortuna. 8D8 suggests that their torture would send a powerful message to his enemies. Boba then says he doesn't torture, which is another one of those things that's like, okay, listen, we get it. You're going to be the hero of the show, but it's like, you're a crime lord. You don't torture, yada, yada. You're really you got to get you got to check all the boxes for anti-hero while we're going here.
Doesn't hurt space dogs. Doesn't hurt
seemed to
children.
Me
no
yeah,
torture.
It seems to me like the Boba Fett from the original series would have for sure tortured. That's the
probably
impression that I got. But maybe he's a changed man, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
When we haven't seen his full progression from surviving the Sarlacc pit, where he was flirting with with Jabba's slaves essentially, to what he is now, which is different, And we kind of saw a little bit of that in Mando, so I'm open to saying, hey, he grew as a character, and now he doesn't torture because he was tortured.
I mean, we got to see, and I'm sure it's coming, but some sort of establishment of dominance. But
yeah, I mean, he did chop a guy's head off in this episode, right?
I mean, yeah, that's true.
And disintegrate someone, which of course is the direct line to the return. To attack.
No disintegration.
No disintegration.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's such a good line. So these Gamorrean guards are introduced. Boba decides to spare their life in exchange for their loyalty, which works despite Fennec's objections. We then cut to Mos Espa. I guess before we get there, any thoughts on this general kind of like throne room scene?
Oh no, I liked it. I kind of liked this whole parade of
Mm-hmm.
different characters, different kind of seedy sort of
Like which
people.
aliens are we gonna see?
Yeah,
That kind of thing. Yeah.
and just it's kind of like the overturn of power. It's very interesting. So
Right.
yeah, and yeah, I find it it was just kind of cool, and I'm excited to see kind of more about how this progresses because I'm sure like Boba Fett isn't the only one who thought about taking over Jabba's throne, right?
Right.
Like
Yeah. No shit. Yeah.
so
Right.
yeah, exactly. So there are probably going to be some like competitors coming out uh as well, but I did like this kind of parade of new characters and a little bit of kind of, the veiled threats, and yeah, I liked it. I thought all the characters were very like well done, and I'm pumped to see more of them and see more of these storylines go ahead because I think
Yeah.
we can branch off into like a bunch of different directions with them.
Well, we'll see how interesting they actually get with it. This is the most interesting scene to me in the episode. It's just the most. There's a lot more meat on the bone here.
Yes,
In terms
yeah, there's
of
a lot
like
more going on.
the layers. Like, I mean, obviously there's
Yeah.
the straight up, hey, here, come present your gifts to the new Jabba, essentially,
Hmm.
right? And then everyone kind of like doing their little show and dance, right?
Yes.
And like, here's the gift, but also here's a threat,
Yeah.
like I think that's
Yes.
fun. And like
It's a gift and a threat.
right, exactly. So
That's how I like
plus
to give gifts, actually. So
right,
it's
if
my
you don't like
favorite
it,
way
I'll
to
kill
give
you.
presents. Yeah.
And then like obviously 8D8 being here is great because the voice actor is great, but also this kind of like it reminds me of 000 a little bit with its murderous nature.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Like I
Yeah.
said, I'm reading more Dr. Aphra. I really love 000.
Right. So let's cut to Mos Espa. There's this beautiful establishing shot of Mos Espa, which, by the way, apparently has this whole sunken section in like a valley, and really, really good looking, and just not something really seen in this detail. We really don't get to see a lot of Tatooine from the air in this kind of detail very often. We've seen
No.
Mos Eisley like that, but really nothing else. So this is
Like mostly
interesting.
because there's
I
not
like
much
that.
to see, but
Yeah, it's mostly desert, and you don't kind of want to like. I get that, but like this is like
yeah.
like a metropolis, as in term in my from as far as I'm concerned.
Yes,
as
no,
far
I
as
know what you're saying.
is stuff on, you know, on Tatooine.
Yeah.
So, Boba and Fennec and their new guards are walking through the streets as Fennec argues that he should be carried like Jabba was to project power. Right. Um, During the scene, we see a lot of different droids and whatnot. There's a really big one, but there's also a handful of these like robot dog-like droids that we see. These are actually real robots in the real world that were costumed for this.
Oh, really?
For the show, these are Boston Dynamics robots. So
Boston.
real, actual robots being used in.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I guess that's not like not the first time because obviously like
those, like-
versions of R2 and stuff have been robots for a long time, but like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are those creepy dogs with the weird legs? Like their legs
Yeah,
look like they're kind
yes.
of like backwards. Yeah.
yes, they are.
Yes.
And then we get this line from Fennec where things would go a lot smoother if you accepted their ways, right? So inside the
Right.
casino / bar that they're going to, we see that there's a Biff leading a band that includes a droid drummer, right? The question is this the new Figrin Dan and the Modal Nodes? Of course, the name of the band from the Mos Eisley Cantina.
Yes.
My assumption is, here's my assumption. He's broken off to do his own thing. This is Figrin Dan, okay? And he's got a new band, okay?
Yeah.
This
They're
is like McCartney
renaming themselves.
after the Beatles, okay? That's what I'm thinking that's going on here. This is just that's just my headcanon.
I love how you need this headcanon for just a cantina.
Yeah. By the way, I was
bar
watching
singer.
with subtitles on, and what it said was variation of Cantina theme. So this is the
Oh.
Cantina theme, but it's a variant, and I actually prefer this variant way more because it has Spanish guitar, which is my favorite type of music. It's just so good.
I still don't understand how you can pick this kind of stuff up, but
I don't know. You don't like music?
I do. I just, yeah.
The
I
other
don't
thing
know.
about if we're on music, by the way, I'll just talk briefly about the music in this series so far. Underwhelming is kind of the the first thing that comes to mind. The music is not done by the same guy who did The Mandalorian. Okay, that's the first.
Okay.
That's the
Fair.
first kind of little bit here. I'm trying to see who does music. Film music by Joseph Shirley with themes from Ludwig Göransson.
Oh,
His
okay.
stuff, Ludwig's stuff, comes through as being very good here.
Yes.
Right?
His stuff is always very good.
But it's just it's little bits and pieces being done by Joseph Shirley. Now, nothing against Joseph Shirley. He may be able to have it might improve throughout the series. It just nothing comes out as being particularly like fresh or new or an interesting variant on a theme. Like I will give him props if this was his variant on the Cantina theme. Loved it, right? But in terms of like score, this is diegetic music, so it's different. But whatever. That's my brief ramble on the music in the show so far. So anyway, we see the band. We get these two mostly naked Twi'leks, a male and a female.
They're always mostly naked.
Yeah, I know,
Wars,
but these ones are extra. These ones are extra, like done up, like dolled up.
Oh yes.
And they come and they like ask if they can service and clean their helmets, and Fennec is like, no.
I know. That's how I would be too.
Which is like, I mean, fair. It's like, hey, I don't trust people to take my helmet away.
Yeah, of course not.
But Boba is like, no. We'll go with it. Yeah, of course. Take mine and hers. Right?
Yeah. He just got his stuff back.
Yeah, and he throws her quote right back at her and says, you got to, things go a lot smoother if you accept their ways.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Which I think was a nice kind of quick comeback. And the person that they're there to see, which is Garsa Fwip, arrives. She is also a Twi'lek. She's apparently in charge of the establishment. And to me, here's the thing that's a little odd for me. Okay. She is a Twi'lek, but her skin tone is like almost like human skin tone. And it's like it's kind of it's a bit of it's a little odd, right? It just throws me off. I'm just used to them being oranges and blues and greens, right? And this is just like regular skin tone.
Because isn't Bib also? Wasn't Bib Fortuna?
Yeah, but he's much more. Yes, he is. That's true. It's a good point.
And he's all pale and creepy, but he's also pale and creepy looking. And
yeah,
so, yeah.
This is just like she just looks like a regular ass person with Twi'lek.
No, I know.
Like what are those things called? Whatever, her ears. Lekkus. Yeah. So
it makes them look a little.
It's just
a little creepier.
It's just creepy looking. Exactly. She's got her nails done, like everything. She just looks. She's all done up, right? And she's got like a French manicure, and it's like, but instead of hair, she has
French manicure. I did not notice.
I don't know if she does. I'm just saying she's got her like she's done up, and I'm just saying like, that's all fine. I just think it's so funny when it's like an alien creature, but they just look like a regular person, and that's always kind of weird.
The tone, yeah, especially the Twi'lek, because you can have so much fun with like the colors of them. Like, why would you just make it like a weird, like Caucasian?
It could be anything, but instead we're gonna go with a white lady.
Yeah, it's super weird.
Yeah. Anyway, so they're talking with this Garsa Fwip person who may or may not come back. And she offers to have the Gamorreans hosed down and fed, which I thought is very funny. Like basically like pigs, which is what they are.
Yeah.
Boba urges, let's get down to business. He tells her that he is replacing Bib Fortuna, which surprises her because she says she didn't see him come in being carried on a litter. Okay, which is I guess the term of the word for that, like the chair that you can carry. Okay. Right.
Yes.
But he says he doesn't want to be carried around like a useless noble, which I appreciate. And I understand. Right. And he says he's there he walks on his own 2 feet. Apparently, the whole thing, this is very funny. He's just there to introduce himself, basically, make an appearance, right? Which is important, right? You need to make an appearance. So he's not their quote unquote business is just them there to say, hi, I'm in charge now.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of pageantry here as well.
Yeah. New boss. I bought the business.
Same as the old boss.
Yeah.
Kind of in a sense. Same as the old boss, except I walk instead of get carried.
Yeah, I'm not.
And so their helmets are returned to them, and they're filled with Republic credits. Right now, you might be saying, "Well, this is weird. What's going on here?" This is protection money, as they call it in the
Right.
The
Yes.
organized
Yes.
crime world, right? As far as I know from watching movies, they're basically saying, "Hey, new Lord of the Underworld here, you can protect our business from the other crime that's going on here that you probably also control, and we will pay our fair share to stay out of it."
Yeah.
And that's essentially what that is. So they've been paid. I do like the line from Fennec because yours looks shinier than mine.
Yeah. I don't know if there's any money in hers. I think it was just in Boba's.
Right, maybe. And as they leave, Boba mentions that that Jabba had many vassals. Okay. Now
Mm-hmm.
it's funny because vassals is like a old English term,
Okay.
unlike the Japanese one we used earlier. So they're kind of just mixing things in here, but the same idea. It's the serfs. It's the those who pay patronage to, in this case, uh, Boba. So,
Right. Yes.
or previously Jabba, and then after that, Bib
Bib.
Fortuna.
Yes.
So Fennec offers to make the rounds on his behalf, but he insists, that he has to be there, and because he intends to do things a little different. This is where we get the line where he intends to rule with respect instead of fear.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. And then, of course, Fennec mentions right after that of course, fear is always a good tactic in quote unquote difficult times.
Yeah.
What do you make? So, what did you make of this whole sequence of them kind of going into Mos Espa, getting this protection money, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah. I thought it was a neat kind of, basically like another neat aspect of this crime syndicate that we don't necessarily know like a ton about. Like we obviously know how crime syndicates work, but
Mm-hmm.
specifically on Tatooine, it's kind of interesting to see this whole other, not like an underground casino, but this whole other like area of it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just thought it is very cool kind of seeing them set up how they're gonna run things and doing their introductions. So and then yeah, like we discussed, some of the costume choices were a little odd, but
Mm. Oh, I also forgot to mention there was astromech droids serving drinks in the
yeah.
bar, which is, I think, also a reference to Return of the Jedi, where 3PO is used, or sorry, not 3PO, R2D2 is used
Yeah.
to serve
To
drinks.
roll around with drinks
Right.
on him. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Which
some
is
of
such
those
a
kind of looked like Caesars. It was funny.
it's kind of an insult to astromechs who are designed to like chart
Oh, yes.
stars instead of just serving drinks in a
It's like,
bar.
here, you have
So
a flat head. Put this on top of it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But no,
Okay.
I just like seeing these different spots and like I don't know. I my favorite parts are always in new series is getting to kind of like meet all the characters for the first time
Mm-hmm.
and get to kind of like, get a feel for them and see like, okay, like kind of wonder in the back of your mind, like I wonder how this person's going to play out later. Are they going to be a major
Right.
character? Are they not? So I do like these very initial introductions.
Yeah, we don't meet like a lot of new people in this episode. It's like really only a handful,
Yeah.
right? And that may or may not even be returning characters.
No, and that's true, but that's
So
kind of what I like to sort of
yeah,
speculate and
yeah.
yeah.
So we get then this fun fight sequence and rooftop chase, and Fennec and Boba are ambushed by a gang of assassins wielding electro staffs. We get to see the Gamorreans in action, actually kind of kicking butt, right?
Yeah.
That
And good to see that their allegiance is there. So
yeah, exactly,
yeah.
proving that he was right? Because Fennec was like saying, I don't know, we should definitely kill them,
Yeah.
and so no. So there's also this. Apparently, some people have been saying that the assassins here are kind of a reference to the ninjas from Mortal Kombat.
Oh,
So,
okay.
like Sub-Zero and all them.
I'm not very familiar with Mortal Kombat.
They do kind of look like that.
Okay.
Kind of. But to me, it's a bit of a stretch. The real Mortal Kombat reference comes in later.
Okay.
So Boba, they fight off these guys with these red energy shields, right? They look kind of like the Episode 1 energy shields. And they eventually they kind of kick a bunch of butt, beat most of them, but some of them get away. Boba disintegrates one with a missile,
Yeah.
like literally blows
Just
one up. It's
them.
crazy, right?
Yeah.
And then and also chops a guy's head off, or it's implied that he does.
Okay, I was gonna say, I'm like, I don't know if I remember seeing a guy's head go flying.
We don't know. It says they don't cut it. They cut away and they show it from his perspective, and he's kind of like, it's in the trailer too.
Oh,
They've
okay.
got those vibro staffs, of course, the most recent, electro staffs. Sorry.
Yes.
Which of course are the same like things that the droids in Revenge of the Sith carried.
Yes,
So
yes, yeah.
anyway, eventually this turns into a foot chase. Boba tells Fennec, to take them alive, right?
Yeah. You mean
So
the parkour scene?
yeah, it is a parkour scene, and it is it's pretty freaking cool. Like
It is cool.
I
Yeah.
really
No,
like.
I
I
know.
love
I
a good
like it
foot
too.
chase, personally.
The only
So
times, sometimes foot chases like this pull me out of what I'm watching, because if I see like the character or the actor like jump over something and make it more difficult than they needed to,
oh right, like
I'm
the
kind of like,
parkour
okay.
elements.
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes I'm like, okay, like he didn't need to like
Like
bounce off that
where's this
wall.
extra step coming
Yeah,
from?
exactly.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'm a little like, all right, you guys could have like settled
Yeah,
down
but it
a
looks
little bit.
cool,
It does.
so I'm
it does.
gonna allow it in this case.
I know. I always notice that's kind of one thing that I
Yeah,
just
but how
nitpick
cool
on.
is it when Fennec dodges those throwing knives?
No, and no, those things are fine. It was just, it wasn't necessarily her moves. It was some of the ones that when they were just showing the two running
ninjas were
away.
doing. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that I
agree
was
with
like,
that.
all right, but
These are
I
just
get
parkour
it.
people doing parkour stuff. I get
Yeah.
it. So anyway, she dodges those throwing knives. She eventually captures one or both, like two of them, and then like just pretty ruthlessly kicks one off the side.
Yeah,
of the,
she's
the
like, I don't
building.
need two of you.
Yeah, I only need one of you. And then we also see earlier that Boba was like needed help to get back to the Bactopod.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is, I think, an important note here that just like, hey, he's still not 100%. He still needs to heal more. And like he'll probably become more badass throughout the series as we go.
Yeah, it does seem like he's definitely kind of weakened right now so yeah, like I'm kind of excited definitely to exactly what you say, see him get stronger and see him get a little bit more back up to speed, but yeah.
So we then go to back to the flashbacks. Boba's put back in the pod, and we're brought back into the dream sequence, and that starts with that same grainy effect that slowly goes away to, hey, remember, we're back in the dream sequence. The Boba and the Rodian are now chained together and forced to march through the desert, being led by the young Tuscan and a Massif. Presumably the same one from before, but again, it's hard to know. The group comes across a gang that has ransacked a moisture farm. We're in the process of ransacking a moisture farm, stealing the water, beating the owner, and taking off in speeder bikes. It's likely that this is the same gang that was mentioned at the beginning of Mandalorian season 2 by what's his name, who was wearing Boba's armor. And as a part of that, it's like basically there's a power vacuum with Boba with Jabba now gone, right? There's these kind of smaller syndicates that are coming up and trying to like make a name for themselves. So that seems like one of them. Either way, sucks to be the person who owns that moisture farm. This group has also been like the costume designing a little funny here because they just look like biker gang. They just look like a generic ass biker gang.
Yeah.
But whatever. They're a generic ass speeder bike gang, so that's a little different.
Yeah.
Anyway, they don't do anything. They don't interfere. They just watch. They then arrive at another part of the desert and are instructed to dig for these like little water shell things. The Rodian finds a few. Boba, tries to make friends with the Massif again.
Yeah.
Boba then finds one of them. He tries taking a sip, and kind of defends himself as the yelling tries to beat him again. But then he kind of like he's such a little prick. This little Tuscan Raider.
Yeah.
He takes the water and then pours it out and feeds it to the Massif.
Yeah.
As punishment, I guess, because he's thirsty. I don't know.
It's just like the very typical like captor thing, right? It's like,
yes.
Oh, you want water? I'm gonna pour it out on the ground in front of you.
Yeah. It
And
makes sense.
A shitty teenage kid thing too, or
especially given a little bit of power.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely goes to your head. So Boba talks shit to the Rodian, and it's pretty funny about sounding the alarm earlier.
Yeah,
he says
what
if you just kept quiet, we both could have gotten out of here.
Which is very true.
Yeah. And he says listen, if you just keep your snout shut, which I think is so funny.
Yeah.
I can get us to Anchorhead, to get us off world. Now, Anchorhead is originally mentioned in A New Hope by Luke. He's talking to Ben, and he's saying, "Hey, listen, I can take you to Anchorhead, but I can't take you any further."
Right.
So that's a fun little nod there. The Rodian calls him a Sleemo,
Yeah,
which is
I
funny.
heard that.
Yeah, and a Sleemo is actually an insult we've heard before.
Yes.
Sleemo is something that Sebulba says to Anakin before
Mhm.
the pod race in episode 1, and it essentially means slime ball.
Yes.
Okay.
I've definitely heard
There you go.
Ahsoka use it a few times
Sleemo.
too. Yeah,
Attack
like
with
she'll
Oro
say
Sleemo.
Sleemo. Yeah.
Yeah. So as they continue to dig, the Rodian finds what looks like a scaly hand, which turns out it is.
Yeah.
It's part of this like large four-armed lizard creature that lives under the
Yeah.
sand. And my first thought here is like, how many giant lizard creatures live under the sand on this
I
planet?
hated this creature. I hated
Why?
it. I hated it. At first, I thought it was going to be like a little crate dragon or something kind of cool. And
Right.
then
Instead, it's just some random bullshit thing you've never seen before.
it looked like the creature from the Black Lagoon, but sand version, like sand lizard version with more arms and like super buff. And I just like.
This is a reference to Mortal Kombat. This is Goro from Mortal Kombat.
I was gonna say
essentially.
it looks like something that you would see in like a shitty older video game.
I just feel like here's what happened. They're writing this episode. They're like, we've done some interesting things here. We set up a little bit of character dynamics between Boba and this youngling Tuscan. We've done all these other things. We needed we need one more action scene,
Which is fair.
Typically, if you're in Tatooine, the Tuscans provide that, that it's maybe they're attacking you or whatever. But now they're with the Tuscans, so what do you do? We're just gonna invent some bullshit new animal. Like it sucks.
I know
it sucks.
I think they could have done, I don't know, at least maybe something we've seen before.
And also, like, we're not going to get a name for it. Like, we're not even going to name it.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah. It was just, I don't know. I just hated the way it looked. I thought it looked really fucking dumb.
It doesn't look great. It doesn't look great. It's Goro.
Yeah.
And this four-armed lizard creature. The creature attacks everyone. It kills the Rodian. Boba uses the ankle chain to strangle the beast. This is obviously also a reference to Leia and Jabba. It's very similar in styling. And saves the youngling's life. Back at the camp, the youngling returns with the beast's head. Triumphant music. Everyone's happy. And Boba kind of like walking freely without the chain.
Right.
The elder, the one that kind of like beat his ass earlier, told the other guy to beat his ass earlier, seems to notice the action that Boba took to save the young Tuscan's life. He's like, there's no way he killed that beast on his own. He knows that.
I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you if you got the impression that the kid was saying that like he did it, or whether he's telling
100%.
the story of,
The
like,
kid's
exactly
trying to take full credit.
Yeah,
100%.
No.
Yeah. And so, but like the elder seems to know better, and he kind of does that. It's very cute. He stands right next to him, and he's like, and just does the little Passover.
Yeah, just hands him the water.
Motion. Yeah, so he hands him the water, and he gets his little bit of respect.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But he's still a slave. Now, it's important to note, we know the Tuscans take slaves. This is what happened to Shmi.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Poor old Shmi. Just saw her recently. She was doing much better in the end of episode 1 than she does in episode 2. So that's interesting. I just like, here's what I hope. Okay. It's like, I feel like there's a real possibility that instead of getting like on with the story, we're going to spend all season with these flashbacks to like him living with the Tuscan Raiders before we catch up to the events of Mandalorian season 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that would suck. In my opinion, it's like we can only do so much of the Tuscan Raider stuff.
I didn't think that. I thought maybe like, all right, maybe okay, they could go one of a couple ways. That is one of them where it's like they keep going with this Tuscan stuff. I kind of think that maybe they can leave it there and they just let them go, know, where the Tuscans are like, all right, like,
that's it. This is the moment. This is how. Right.
Or they can just cut it off right there and just be, because I would be fine with that. Like, to me, that wouldn't be.
I don't think the timing works. Like, I think there needs more time needs to pass.
Yeah. I don't mean like it jumps right into like him meeting up with Fennec and him jumping into the Mandalorian, but
right.
I think we could see something else, a different flashback maybe, but we'll see.
Well, yeah, like how he meets Fennec would be really interesting, right? Like how does that relationship get started and established? I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, does that tie into any of his prior like life as like a dweeb in the organized crime world that he is when he's he's just a dweeby kid, and he like thinks he's such a badass. It's so annoying.
I know, and he's a child. Yeah.
Right. The Daniel Logan version. So that would be interesting, and it's like maybe that'll kind of tie things into more of the prequel stuff, which I know people will be into. I'm worried. This episode's not great. It's kind of short, at only 40 minutes long. For introduction for a brand new show with a character that's like as big as Boba Fett, this is how you're going to start it. I think it's a little lackluster. It's a little underwhelming.
That's true. They probably could have done like a bigger episode to
They've
start.
done 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Like, they've done that with other things. So I just think
with
personally this could have been done better. There's some really great elements here. I like that first little bit with the no dialogue stuff. I thought that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the throne room scene, some of it anyway. Some of the dialogue choices are concerning to me, but it looks good. I think one of the things is I think that the more you understand how the show is made using the volume, I think it's easier to spot when the volume is being used.
Yeah.
And the scene specifically that comes to mind is that scene with the sandcrawler.
Yes,
and it just looks bad, like the way they tilt up, and it's like it's inside of a snow globe, and I think that's bad. But I understand Disney's spending so much money like on these shows. Is it in aggregate? I mean, so like we're dealing with like the Marvel stuff and the Star Wars stuff. We know there's so many Star Wars shows coming, right? But yet we know so little about them. The cost per episode is relatively low.
Right, so like they're gonna have to spread that out. So.
Yeah, I still think it looks pretty good. Like overall, I think the value per dollar you're getting out of the Star Wars shows is really high, but it could be a little higher. I think.
I would agree with that.
It looks a little cheap at times, and I obviously love having Boba Fett back, and just having more Tamora Morrison is in my life
it's so good.
Is never going to be a negative. I love. Me some Tamora Morrison.
Yeah.
Okay?
No, I would agree with those criticisms, honestly, but this is always my mentality is I'm excited to see more and what we get next. So I don't want to judge it too harshly yet, but yeah. Yeah,
there's a lot of possibilities for some really interesting elements here. It's just too early to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where does the show go? I mean, it's going to be this first season is going to be about him establishing himself as being a real player in the underworld.
Definitely.
And like that may or may not be interesting because the stakes are fairly low, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh no, if he doesn't succeed, he's just not a crime lord. Oh no, you know, like that's not that interesting. Like I think they might need to introduce something that's a little bit more engaging.
Yeah, that's fair.
So we'll see, but that's kind of I'm kind of lukewarm on this as it stands. Obviously, more Star Wars is good, and I'm enjoying it.
Oh yeah.
But, this I feel like it could be a little. It's just a little lackluster to me, and it maybe this is coming back to like I like me some Rodriguez, right? Robert Rodriguez, I do, but maybe he's just not maybe I don't vibe with his Star Wars take as much as I do his non-Star Wars stuff. We'll see. Time will tell. What do you think? What is your prediction for where this is going to go?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be necessarily upset if we see some more flashbacks. I agree that now that you said it, I hope it's not all Tuscan Raider stuff.
It can't be.
No, I'm sure it's going to be other things. I'm sure they're going to move it along. But I agree with you. I would like to see something a little bit more exciting next episode, a little bit more engaging, and no more stupid sand monsters.
Right, and yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
It's just we did the stupid sand monster for the first episode of Mando season 2.
Yeah.
We don't need a second one.
Yeah.
And
sometimes they do really well with it, which is cool, but yeah, sometimes they don't. So
yeah. Listen, I know a lot of people didn't like the the snow spiders.
I like them. I thought they were creepy, but
they are creepy. But all I'm saying is episodes like that really bug people. So
yeah, that's fair. Is anyone mad about this thing yet?
I don't think so. I don't think as much. But
all right, I guess it's just me.
It is called Book of Boba Fett, so in theory, we'll get maybe way more Boba Fett, establishing him in the universe in other parts of the universe that we didn't know he was involved in. That would be really cool.
That would be super cool.
How can we get to some interesting flashbacks of him, in his prime, quote unquote, during the events of other things that we know, or talking to other characters that we are familiar with.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
How does he gain this kind of notoriety? Mm-hmm. That has to go further back, right? I mean, we're dealing with things post Return of the Jedi so far, right? This is still new. It would have to go further back to get that.
Yes,
But
yeah.
maybe it's even just alluded to. So I mean, there's a lot of possibilities there with just the name of the show itself.
Oh yeah.
Which allows you to kind of jump chapter to chapter to do different things. Obviously, by the way, the Mandalorian did chapters because the word episode is already used for the movies. So they're doing the same thing here, and obviously it's called the Book of Boba Fett, so it makes a lot of sense that it would be a chapter.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah.
So anyway, that is the first episode. Any other final thoughts, or shall we close it out?
No, I think we can close it on out.
Okay. So I will just say that we will be recording probably on Thursdays. Okay.
Yeah.
Most of the time posting on Fridays. Like recording Thursday, you can see it. The live version will be up on that, whatever YouTube or whatever you want to watch it on. Will be there if you want to see it, and we'll likely post it Fridays, maybe the odd Thursday posting, but don't hold your breath on that one. So that's going to be the general schedule for this season. And as always, we kind of play it by ear. So as new shows come out, whether it's Andor or Obi-Wan or the Acolyte or whatever, right, as they come, we'll kind of play it by ear and how we want to cover it. But so far, we're going to continue the same methodology we've used for Mandalorian and for the Bad Batch and for Clone Wars and everything else. So stay tuned for those. Like I said, follow us on Twitter at TowerBabbleCast to stay up to tune with everything else we're doing. And we'll be back next week with more small screen Star Wars. We'll talk to you then. May the Force be with you.